I'm Dr. Ashley.
And this is Sherry.
And this is From Her Point of View. Hey, guess who's back?
Right?
I know y'all been waiting on it.
I know I've been waiting on it. My life has changed so drastically. I wanted nothing more but to record. But being a new mom has made that extremely difficult. But we're here now, so we're going to give them what we got.
So let's talk about what's been going on since, last time you've been on here was 2021.
Wait, I was going to say it had to be at least 2 years because what I remember is, and I might be mistaken, but we recorded right when I found out I was pregnant. You came over, we had our little shindig, did some recording, and then I think we touched base maybe one time after that, but time has definitely gotten away from me. And not being able to just freely just pop on and do things. And my daughter requires 100% of my time, whether I like it or not.
So let's just take a step back and talk about what's going on. So, like we just said, you guys have heard from me, but the other half of this podcast is now with us again, and let's just talk about what's been going on since 2021. So we found out that little people were coming. And then we traipsed off to Vegas.
Sure did.
Had a time.
Sober and all on this end. Sober and all.
Well. And we had a time, and then I think that was probably like the last time that things were what we knew as normal.
I really wanted to take the time out to focus on my pregnancy. Being a first-time mom and the stage in which I was in. And then there was a lot of personal things going on in my life at that time that just kind of took my attention away from everything. Podcast. If it wasn't work, personal, pregnancy, I didn't have the energy for it. Becoming a new mom, looking for a house while pregnant, purchasing my first home while pregnant, trying to set things up so that me and my child could have some type of stability. That was definitely key with this whole process. But I really want to go back to the whole getting pregnant thing, because I don't know if we really talked about that.
We didn't. Let's go back to it.
So, as you mentioned, yes, we found out we were having little people, but let's go back.
Okay, go ahead. You go where you want to. I'll facilitate the conversation, and you go where you want to go. And when we go off on a tangent, I'll bring it back. That's what I do.
Right.
Let's go.
So, I was, 38, and not even thinking that having a baby was even in the cards for me, because not even 6 months prior to getting pregnant, I went to the doctor to get tested to see if I was even fertile, to get pregnant, because I've never had a pregnancy scare. And we always talked about that. People would always say, well, you don't want to have a baby? Well, you really don't have no kids? How old are you? It was just such disbelief that at my age, I've never been pregnant and didn't have a child. And so it caused me to have some type of doubt in myself to go get myself checked out. Everything came back clear as day, and I didn't think anything of it. And sure enough, ended up pregnant. But I ended up pregnant during a time in my life where my mom was really sick, and stress wasn't even stress was an understatement. There was so much going on because I was traveling back and forth trying to make sure that she had what she needed and get her back on her feet. And lo and behold, one weekend I stayed home, some things happened, and it happened, and I ended up getting pregnant. And so finding out I was pregnant was a complete shock. And you knew, and my sister knew before I even thought about it or wanted to come to the realization that it was actually happening to me. Because like you said, we had our little shindig. Everything was everything. And then I knew that after that time, something wasn't right. So I had to take a test. Took a test.
Well, hold on. Let's first say that because, ladies, you all know when you spend a lot of time with somebody, usually your cycles sync up. So
right.
Usually things happen around the same time.
Right. So my sister and you, we all had our cycle around the same time.
Right.
And everybody had theirs but me.
Right. And so I'm saying, well, I am, and she is. Well, you're not because you're pregnant.
And I said, no. It's just not. It's just not. And so I'm going on life like it's just not. It just can't be. Like it's never been. So why now? Was my thought. And yeah. So my sister, she kept checking in with me. So did you come on period yet? I'm like, no. My cycle's probably just changing, back to life. Things are happening. It's just.
And it could even have been confused with perimenopause because of the age that we are.
Correct. So I wasn't in denial yet. I was just kind of like not even trying to think about it, get my hopes up that this is a possibility. And then it wasn't a possibility. So it was probably maybe like a month. I was almost 5 weeks. And so I decided, you said, just take a test. And I'm like, no, I'm just going to hold off. I said I was going to wait until after Vegas, but definitely couldn't do that. So took a test, went and got 3 tests. Talked it over with my partner, told him what was going on. He said, okay, take a test. Took a test. And let's just say that came back positive so quick. There was just no doubt that this was happening. And I still didn't believe it. So I come downstairs and I tell him, hey, test is positive. And he's like, oh, okay, cool. And I was like, yeah, but we're just going to have dinner and then I'm going to take another test because I just don't believe it. So even then, did the whole dinner thing, went back upstairs, took another test. Test came back positive. I was like, this is not okay. This is this happening? Like this, I've never had that happen to me before. So I remember calling you and telling you this is positive. And you said, well, yeah, because you're pregnant.
Right. That's what happens.
I was just like, I don't know. I need to sleep on this basically. And that's what I did. And then the next morning took another test. And of course the test came back positive. There was no doubt. And so I talked it over with my partner and I said, hey, I took this test. I took 3 tests. They're all positive. So he's like, okay, well, what's wrong? And I'm like, I just don't know. So he said, well, go and schedule to get blood work done. So 2 days later, got my blood work done. My doctor says, oh, what are we in for? And I said, I think I'm pregnant. She said, oh, really? She's like, and she said, look at God, because just a few months ago, you thought that you were not fertile. And it looks like based on your test results that you are. And you're 5 weeks is what she told me. And I was just like, okay. She's like, this is a good thing. I said, is it? Because I'm about to be 40. How is this happening to me now? And she says, it can happen at any age. And then she said, Sherry, it happens when people have sex, right? It's possible. I said, yeah, but my situation. And she said, yeah, and God decided that now is the time for you to have this baby. So that's what we're doing. So I said, okay, I guess you're right. So I said, well, can you schedule me to get a sonogram just to make sure everything is good? And she said, absolutely. So she scheduled me to get the sonogram. I think I got the sonogram once we came back from Vegas.
Let's talk about the fact that we were in Vegas and the ongoing commentary was, if this is real.
Yes, that was after 3 tests.
3 tests, a blood
3
test.
tests and a blood test. And I still kept saying, if this is real. And you said, where's your mind? Literally the entire time we were there, I really kept saying, if this is real. Because even then, I still was in such disbelief that I was actually going to have a baby. And so when we did, so this is how I knew, even with the tests and the blood work and everything, I knew I was pregnant when we were getting ready to land, and I threw up. As the plane was landing, I threw up in my lap in a towel. Mm-hmm. That was the most unreal thing to me. And I said, yeah, this is happening. Like this whole weekend I was in denial, and that whole situation with me throwing up the way I threw up, I'm like, yeah, this is happening. So came back, scheduled the sonogram. I go in there, she's checking me, I'm looking at the ceiling, and I said, so what's going on down there? Like, this is crazy. And she says, well, you're having a baby, right? I said, so there's something in there? She said, yes. So I said, oh. She said, turn around. So I turn around and I see this little nugget of a thing inside this bubble, which looked like a bubble. I said, I'm really having a baby. She said, well, did you not know that before you came in here? And I said, yes. I mean, I took several tests and got blood work done, but I was just in denial. She said, no, Mama, you're having a baby. And it was at that moment that I knew my entire life was getting ready to change. Like emotionally, mentally, physically, I knew that things were never going to be what they were at that moment. And just to touch base, when we talked about how people would always be like, why don't you have a baby? Why don't you have a baby? You're not pregnant, like you don't have any kids. The woman who did my sonogram, and I told her too, I said, I'm about to be 40. Why is this happening to me now? I just don't understand it. And she said, this is a blessing. She said, me and my husband have been trying to get pregnant for almost a year now, and she was 42. And she said, it just hasn't happened for me. And it was at that moment that I realized, like, I had to get it together, because this was a blessing. Whether I was shocked by it, ready for it or not, it was happening, and God was going to make sure that I had what I needed to get through the entire situation. But then I had to think about this woman who wanted a baby, and she just could not. So I took the moment out and I prayed with her, and I basically, asked God that if it was meant to be for her, then I hope that it is, because her and her husband really, really wanted to have a baby, and they just were not having no success. So it could definitely happen at any age to anybody when you least expect it. And that's what she said. Everything happens when you least expect it. So she was hopeful that it was going to happen for them. And I really hope that it has. I've never seen her after that. But I really hope that if that's what they wanted, that it did happen for them. So get the sonogram done. I think I called you, but you already knew. So me calling you to reconfirm what was already confirmed was just craziness. So I remember calling my sisters, and I said to them, I need to talk to you both on a call because I have something to tell you. And they thought it was about my mom, because at the time she was still very sick. Mm-hmm. And so we did the video, we did a Skype, and during the conversation, I said, hold on, y'all, I got to show you something. So I figured out how to put a picture of the sonogram as my background. And my little sister says, what the hell? What the hell is that? Is that a baby? Whose baby is that? And I said, that's our baby. She said, our baby? She said, wait, you're having a baby? I said, yep. And my older sister says, well, duh, I already knew you were pregnant. She said, you're the one that was in denial. And I was like, you know what? She is so right. And so she told my little sister, you over there doing all of that. The proper response is congratulations. Congratulations, because we're having a baby. And it was then that everything changed. I was so excited. I was nervous. I was unsure. I had a ball of emotions going through me, but I knew that at that moment my life would be different. And I was ready. I was ready for whatever was going to happen. This little baby was coming and I was going to get myself together for it. And that's what I did. From that point on, that is what I did.
So talk about where you were emotionally, like how that hit you and what you did with it.
There were ups and downs because ideally our situation wasn't ideal at the time of getting pregnant. And it was a shock to both of us because, you know, his kids are older, and to be like, oh, hey, by the way, this is happening to us, you know, it was kind of like, okay, like neither one of us kind of knew what to do with that information. But I knew for me, with or without, happy or not happy, this baby was coming. This baby was happening. And I was overwhelmed. I was overwhelmed, but I knew that I had to get myself together by any means necessary to make sure that I have a very healthy, safe pregnancy, because getting pregnant at this age is not common for, I guess, regular people. You see celebrities do it all the time, but they be having all nutritionists and all the information and special doctors and all that stuff. So getting pregnant at this age was just not something that was not normal, but it was scary. It was very, very scary. And I just wanted to make sure that I was doing all the things right. I think I got on my OBGYN's nerves because I stay asking the questions. I stay sending her the emails because I just didn't know. And anything I didn't know, I asked. Because I wanted to make sure that I was doing everything right, not just for me, but for the baby inside of me. So emotionally, I was a wreck. I was all over the place.
Because it's a lot.
It is a lot. And I think the hormones, once they start changing and kicking in, you don't know what to do. And I already have anxiety, something that I was dealing with. So getting pregnant and being on medication and then not being able to be on medication because I was pregnant made my anxiety so bad. And I remember talking to my psychiatrist, and she was like, well, I don't recommend you keep taking the medicine because it can harm the baby. She was like, you just have to find other means to cope. And that was very worrisome. But I knew I had to get myself together by any means necessary for me and for this baby, because this was happening. And they say God doesn't put more on you than you can bear. And so I had to take that and just believe that this was happening and it was going to be okay. So baby's coming. The months went by pretty fast. I had a pretty easy pregnancy for the most part. I was nauseous a lot, but I had no sickness, no throwing up. I only gained 21 or 22 pounds. My OBGYN told me strictly don't eat everything because you're pregnant, because that's a lie. Don't do what everybody else does because you're not young. You're no spring chicken, and you're going to gain that weight and you're not going to be able to get rid of it like a young person would. And she had to take her own advice. And so I took that advice from her. I ate what I needed to eat when I needed to eat it, but I wasn't like crazy obsessed with cravings and having to have this and having to have that. But I will tell you, the one thing I had to have early in my pregnancy was strawberry lemonade. I had to have strawberry lemonade every day. Outside of that, nothing else mattered. But I only gained like 21, 22 pounds. So taking her advice was good because my bounce back was good. I had a nice little bounce back. I gained all my weight back to date, but I lost that weight like it was nothing. And some.
I would tell you, it's a very, very different experience to have watched you go through this at our age of having your first child than to be where I was when I was having my first child at 23.
Right.
You're in a totally different place in life. You're totally in a different level of preparedness at that point.
Mm-hmm.
You know a lot more about who you are and the dynamics of the parenting style you may like to have had at our age versus at a much younger age.
Right.
So it was very interesting to watch for me, being so far removed from that period or that part of life now.
Right. But with you being so close by my side, because for those who don't know, Ashley is my daughter's godmom. She's one of them. I leaned on her for advice in certain situations, even though she was so far removed from the situation of, having a baby, and she had 2 kids. Both situations for her were different. And I knew that she had the experience and the know-how to kind of guide me through. She's the one, you're the one who told me you are going to breastfeed. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And we're going to do a whole session on that, because that completely took over my life. I was not prepared. Do I recommend it? Yes, I recommend it for every mom to try it, but it ain't for every mom. And don't feel bad if you can't succeed. But you're the one who told me about it and how significant it was to be able to provide that to my child. So when you say like it's different watching me at my age and doing the things that you did when you had your babies, it's totally different. I feel like when you're pregnant at this age, the things that consume you mentally are not the same things that consume you as a 20-year-old. And I know 20-year-olds who say, oh, I didn't think about that.
Right.
Oh, I didn't do that. Oh, that's a thing? And I'm like, yeah. But as an older, more mature mom and seeing how other moms kind of navigate through, I kind of do what my mom says, eat the meat and throw away the bones. I took the things that I felt like would work for me and, took the benefits, the pros and the cons, and kind of figured it out on my own. It wasn't easy though, because I got overstimulated with information. Because I was looking up everything and checking into everything and asking all the questions. I wanted a doula. Like I was hell bent on, I'm getting a doula. And my doctor said, well, what do you need a doula? Like, you have a spouse. He is the doula. And I said, he could check out at any given moment. What are you talking about? And she said, no, you'll be fine. And then when I found out how much a doula costs, I said, yeah, we might have to pass on that because we ain't got it. But the services that a doula could provide would have been nice, helpful, but I made a point to make sure that I was well informed and got the information that I needed to make me feel better about the decisions that I was making for my body and for my baby. Whereas though I don't think a 20-year-old is thinking about these things. Even an early 30-year-old being pregnant at this age and not being pregnant at this age is completely different. And I think our listeners can understand the younger audience who, had babies young, and those people who are young now thinking of having babies. It's totally different. And I feel like there's no right or wrong way of going about it. You know your body, you know what you need. You know what matters to you, and you just focus on that and just pray and hope for a healthy baby and a successful delivery.
I appreciate your positive outlook on it. I respectfully disagree.
Let's talk about it.
I do think that there is an ideal or a relatively right or wrong way to go about things. Children are a blessing. That is a fact. But I also think that it's not always an ideal situation for children to be brought into.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I wasn't even thinking about that, but yeah, you're right. Certain situations a child should not be brought into. But I think from from a woman's standpoint, whatever you decide to do, you know what you need, what your body needs. Your doctor tells you what your baby needs. And I mean, they're not going to steer you in the wrong direction. So hopefully you're taking heed to the advice and doing all the right things. But
and also listening to your body, knowing your body, and even sometimes the advice that they give, you have to really advocate for yourself in these spaces too. Especially as Black women, you know that we're more likely to die in childbirth. I don't have this statistic, but I will look it up and we will share it. And we really have to advocate for ourselves. So when things are going on during the pregnancy, you have to speak up about them. You have to, and that's another thing that I think is a little bit different with a more mature parent, is you know more about your body. You've been in this body for a while. Right. So even with the differences that go on with pregnancy, you'll be more readily able to identify different things that come up and be more comfortable saying to your provider, this is not right. I understand what you're saying, but I'm telling you what I'm experiencing.
Right.
And a younger person may not do that.
Yeah, that's true. But I will say the one thing I did learn just from other people's experiences and just, doing my research is that, yes, you do have to advocate for yourself.
Absolutely.
And we'll get more into this too. But my sister, who was saying, what the hell, we're having a baby, you're pregnant. She ended up being pregnant 4 weeks later. And so her whole, I can't believe this is happening to you, was now happening to her. And we're only 2 years apart. And so not only was I an advocate for myself in my situation, but I was an advocate for her through her entire pregnancy as well. And we kind of piggyback off of each other as far as information is concerned, because we were so close. So a lot of things that I had just went through, she was getting ready to go through. So we talked about those things and we kind of compared notes per se to try to make sure that we were both doing what we needed to do. To make sure that this was successful for both of us. We was old ass moms.
Somebody to walk with through that.
Yes, that was amazing. I am so glad that we had that experience together. Definitely wouldn't change it for anything. And the cousins, they just love each other so much, and they're going to be so close.
They're so sweet.
So, yeah, advocating for yourself is super, 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 super important. And just doing the research, I found that very helpful. Outside of wanting a doula, I'm like, okay, I can't afford it, but I'm going to make sure that I have the information that I need to ask the right questions and care for myself.
So what exactly were you looking for in a doula?
Support, being able to kind of have that person there, or so I thought, have that person there to kind of hold my hand through the process when my partner wasn't around, somebody to go to doctor's appointments with and just kind of, ask questions and things like that. And then from what I know, if you have a doula, they could be present there with you in the delivery room. I didn't need that. I had a great team. But if I didn't, that person would be there to make sure that things were going as planned. But I did have a birth plan, and I kind of stuck to that. And I made sure that everybody who was present during the delivery was privy to that birth plan. But just having that support. But I got that from friends and family of people who have children right now. So I didn't really need a doula. And I'm glad I didn't get one.
Oh.
Because who would say they were going to steer me in the right direction? Who knows?
Okay.
I saved $4,000.
Well, that's always a factor.
But to each his own. I think if I ever did it again and I had the money to do it, I would definitely get one, though, just for the experience of having one.
Is that something you think about, doing it again?
I do think about doing it again, only because this particular situation was mild. It wasn't easy, but it was mild. I didn't have any horror stories to talk about. The pregnancy wasn't bad. I didn't gain a lot of weight. I had iron issues. but I didn't have preeclampsia. And then a delivery, she came out so quickly that I was like, wait, this wasn't bad. So yeah, I do think about maybe trying to do it again, but I don't know. I don't want to say no, it will never happen, but let's say I don't think about it that often. Not anymore.
It's a lot to think about. I mean, we only have a 1-year-old. I mean, a lot. It's been a whirlwind for a while.
A 1-year-old.
So it's a lot to think about, but.
And if I do have it, I want to do it for the right reasons with the right person.
Yeah.
Because that definitely matters. Support from your spouse is like number one. It's so important. And for, spouses who are listening and taking into consideration, it is so important for the spouse to be supported and be open to the confusion and the questions and everything that comes along with being pregnant and thereafter, because postpartum is real and we don't ask for it. It just happens. And so if you don't have that person who can help you get over these little hurdles, it makes it a lot more difficult than it really has to be.
Yeah. So now that we talked about what's leading up to delivery, the next thing we're going to discuss is delivery.
Okay.
You've been listening to From Her Point of View. You can find this episode and more on your favorite podcast platforms. Share what you've heard with your family and friends. You can follow on Facebook and Instagram where you can leave a comment or question. Leave a voicemail at 443-507-8032. Email at fromherpointofviewllc@gmail.com. For your coaching needs, please visit aktcoaching.com. That's AKT-coaching.com. And email at akt@akt-coaching.com. Thank you again for your support and for listening to this episode of From Her Point of View.